First Contact's Folly. Admiral Vex 427 observed the approaching vessel through the Meridian flagship's quantum imaging array. The alien ship was ungainly, all sharp angles and exposed structural elements, so different from the mathematically perfect spheres of the Meridian fleet. His secondary brain cluster performed rapid calculations, analyzing every aspect of the vessel's design. By all metrics, it should have been impossible for such a crude construct to achieve faster-than-light travel. Preliminary analysis complete, Admiral, announced Logic Officer Sen 891. The vessel appears to be of human origin. Their civilization has achieved only rudimentary space travel capabilities within the last century. Their technological development path is irregular. Vex 427's photoreceptors pulsed with mild amusement. In the 3 millennia since the Meridian Empire had achieved spacefaring status, they had encountered dozens of species. Each had followed the same logical progression of technological advancement, the same mathematical constants that governed the universe itself. But these humans seemed to have stumbled their way into the stars through a series of improbable technological leaps. Their shield harmonics are chaotic, reported Weapons Officer Rin 654. No discernible pattern. They appear to be modulating randomly. Impossible, Vex 427 responded. All energy fields must follow mathematical principles. Expand the analysis parameters. Aboard the UES Pioneer, Captain Elena Santos watched the alien vessel with equal curiosity. The massive sphere of shifting geometric patterns was unlike anything humanity had encountered in their brief venture into deep space. Her crew worked with practiced efficiency, but she could sense their excitement. Humanity's first contact with an advanced civilization. Their scanning beams are intense, Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported from the science station. They're trying to analyze every aspect of our ship, but they keep changing frequencies, like they're searching for something. Santos smiled. The Pioneer's adaptive shield system, a technology born from a garage inventor's wild theory about quantum uncertainty, was probably giving their visitors fits. It didn't follow the conventional rules of energy field dynamics, which was exactly why it worked so well. They're hailing us, Communications Officer Chen announced. The translation matrix is having trouble with their language. It's incredibly precise, almost like pure mathematics. Open a channel, Santos ordered, straightening in her chair. This was the moment humanity had prepared for, though not quite in the way their first contact protocols had anticipated. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Admiral Vex 427's alien form. His crystalline structure refracted light in complex patterns, and multiple sensor arrays focused on Santos with unwavering intensity. Greetings, human vessel. The translation came through in perfectly structured sentences. Your presence here violates the mathematical principles of technological progression. Explain your anomalous advancement. Santos blinked, caught off guard by the unusual demand. We achieved space travel through human ingenuity and determination. There's no single path to the stars. The alien's crystalline structure flickered with what might have been confusion. Incorrect. All technological advancement follows the universal constants. Your civilization's development pattern is impossible. With all due respect, Admiral, Santos replied, humans have a habit of doing the impossible. We'd be happy to share our history and learn from yours. The Meridian Admiral's next words carried a note of what might have been concern. Your vessel's shield harmonics defy analysis. This suggests deliberate deception. The Empire cannot allow potentially hostile anomalies to persist. Santos' tactical training kicked in as she noticed subtle changes in the alien vessel's energy signature. Admiral, I assure you we come in peace. But if you are thinking of testing our defenses, I should warn you, humans tend to be full of surprises. Peace is maintained through mathematical certainty, Vex 427 responded. Your existence introduces chaos into the equations. A demonstration of imperial power will restore order. Prepare for imminent correction. As the transmission cut off, Santos was already calling the ship to battle stations. The Meridians were about to learn an important lesson about humanity, one that countless others throughout history had learned the hard way. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe wasn't mathematical certainty, but the human capacity to defy expectations. "All hands, battle stations," she commanded, her voice calm and steady. "Let's show our new friends that not everything in this universe can be reduced to numbers." The massive Meridian sphere began to shift, its surface restructuring into perfect geometric patterns of weapon arrays. They were about to learn that humanity's chaotic approach to technology wasn't a weakness, it was their greatest strength. The first shots of this encounter would spark a conflict that would change both civilizations forever, though not in the way either side could have predicted. The human factor. The first barrage from the Meridian vessel was a masterpiece of mathematical precision, a perfectly calculated web of energy beams designed to overwhelm any known shield configuration. Admiral Vex 427 watched with absolute certainty as the attack pattern, refined through millennia of combat simulations, approached the human ship. But the UES Pioneer didn't behave like any vessel in the Meridian combat database. Instead of attempting to deflect or absorb the incoming fire, the ship's shields flickered in an apparently random pattern, causing most of the energy beams to pass harmlessly through the space where they expected resistance. "Impossible," muttered Weapons Officer Rin 654. "Their shield modulation pattern. It's not following any logical sequence." Inside the Pioneer, Lieutenant Commander Jackson grinned at his console. "The quantum uncertainty shields are working perfectly, Captain. Their attacks are so predictable that our AI can spot the patterns and adjust our defenses before they hit." Captain Santos nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Time to show them some human improvisation. Engineering, initiate the Tesla protocol." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Martinez activated a system that would have made any conventional physicist cry. The Pioneer's power core began channeling energy in ways that defied standard mathematical models, creating electromagnetic pulses that rippled through space in chaotic waves. The Meridian ship's sensors, calibrated for mathematical precision, were overwhelmed by the apparently random energy fluctuations. Their targeting systems, unable to establish clean lock patterns, began to falter. "Our sensors are experiencing unprecedented interference," reported Logic Officer Sen 891, his crystalline form vibrating with distress. "The humans are generating energy patterns that violate fundamental laws of physics." "Negative," Admiral Vex 427 responded, though uncertainty had crept into his usually confident calculations. "They must be employing some form of deception. Initiate containment pattern Delta." The massive Meridian sphere began to transform, its surface flowing like liquid geometry as it reconfigured into a new attack formation. But the humans had anticipated this response. "They're switching to their standard containment protocol," Santos announced, recognizing the pattern from their initial scans of Meridian technology. "Execute Operation Chaos Theory." The Pioneer's reaction defied every combat algorithm in the Meridian database. Instead of retreating or attempting to break through the containment pattern, the human vessel charged directly at the Meridian ship, its erratic shield modulations creating a wake of quantum disturbances that played havoc with the alien sensors. "Captain," Jackson reported, excitement clear in his voice, "their weapon systems are trying to adapt, but they're still looking for patterns that don't exist. Our random number generator is driving their targeting systems crazy." Santos allowed herself a small smile. The Meridians had built their entire civilization on the principle that the universe followed strict mathematical rules. They weren't wrong, but they had never encountered a species that had learned to weaponize uncertainty itself. "Their shield configuration is shifting," Tactical Officer Rodriguez announced. "They're trying to create a perfect defensive sphere." "Perfect is predictable," Santos responded. "Launch the gravity mines." Small, unassuming devices detached from the Pioneer's hull, their trajectories seemingly random. The Meridian sensors initially dismissed them as debris until they activated, creating localized gravity distortions that pulled at the alien vessel's perfectly calculated shield geometries. Admiral Vex 427 watched in growing confusion as his ship's defenses began to warp and fluctuate. Impossible. They're manipulating gravitational fields without regard for mathematical balance. The energy expenditure should be. Admiral, interrupted Sen 891. Their attack pattern contains no discernible logic, yet it's achieving maximum tactical efficiency. Our combat algorithms cannot compute an effective response. The Meridian vessel's perfect spherical form began to distort as it tried to compensate for the chaotic gravitational forces pulling at it from multiple directions. Its weapon systems, designed to target vessels following logical combat patterns, struggled to track the Pioneers' seemingly random movements. Their entire approach to warfare is fundamentally flawed, Vex 427 declared, though his certainty was wavering. No civilization can advance without adhering to mathematical principles. And yet here we are. Santos responded over an open channel, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. Sometimes the best mathematics is knowing when to throw out the rulebook. As if to emphasize her point, the Pioneer executed a maneuver that caused several of Vex 427's sensor clusters to reset themselves, unable to process the apparent impossibility of the human ship's movement. The Meridians were beginning to learn a crucial lesson. In their pursuit of mathematical perfection, they had become perfectly predictable. The battle was far from over, but something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in their long history, the Meridians faced an enemy they couldn't quantify, and that terrified them more than any conventional weapon ever could. Breaking the algorithm. Admiral Vex 427's crystalline form pulsed with unprecedented patterns as he processed the battle data. The human vessel had not only survived the initial engagement, but had forced the Meridian flagship to retreat. Now, 3 days later, he faced the assembled high command, attempting to explain the inexplicable. The humans employ what they call innovative thinking, he reported, projecting battle footage that made several of the elder commander's sensor arrays flicker in distress. They deliberately introduce random variables into their combat strategies, creating scenarios our algorithms cannot predict. The Grand Calculator, oldest of the Meridian leadership, shifted their ancient crystalline form forward. You suggest they achieve superior results through inferior methods. This defies all known laws of tactical evolution. Meanwhile, aboard the Pioneer, Captain Santos was having a very different kind of meeting. Her crew had gathered in the briefing room, where Lieutenant Commander Jackson was excitedly explaining his analysis of Meridian technology. Their entire civilization is built on mathematical perfection, he said, gesturing to the holographic displays. Every weapon, every shield configuration, every battle formation. It's all derived from pure mathematical principles. But that's their weakness. They've optimized themselves into a corner. Santos nodded, studying the tactical projections. They can't handle randomness because they've eliminated it from their entire approach to warfare. But we need to be careful. They're learning, adapting, even if it goes against their nature. As if to confirm her words, the ship's sensors detected multiple FTL signatures. The Meridians had returned, not with one ship, but with an entire battle fleet. 7 perfect spheres emerged from hyperspace, arranging themselves in a formation that seemed to bend space itself with its geometric precision. They've modified their approach, Rodriguez reported from Tactical. The formation isn't just for show. They're creating some kind of mathematical resonance field between the ships. Of course they are, Santos mused. They're trying to impose order on chaos, to force the battle to follow their rules. She straightened in her chair, a plan already forming. And that's exactly what we're going to use against them. The Pioneer's crew moved with practiced efficiency, but there was an underlying excitement in their actions. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before, something that the Meridians would consider not just impossible, but mathematically offensive. Engineering, Begin power-up sequence for the quantum uncertainty drive, Santos ordered. But this time, we're going to do something different. Instead of trying to minimize the quantum fluctuations, we're going to amplify them. Chief Engineer Martinez's voice carried both enthusiasm and concern. Captain, if we do that, we'll be creating a bubble of pure probability chaos around the ship. Even our own systems might behave unpredictably. Exactly, Santos smiled. Sometimes you have to embrace chaos to create a new kind of order. The Meridian fleet watched as the human vessel began to emit energy readings that their sensors simply couldn't process. The space around the Pioneer seemed to shimmer, reality itself becoming uncertain within the quantum probability field. Their actions defy all tactical logic. Admiral Vex 427 reported to the Fleet Command. They are deliberately introducing uncertainty into the space-time continuum. The Meridian ships responded with a coordinated attack that should have been unstoppable. Energy beams and graviton pulses precisely calculated to converge from 7 different vectors. But in the quantum probability field surrounding the Pioneer, mathematics itself became fluid. Some shots missed completely, others seemed to pass through the ship without effect, and a few even appeared to curve back toward their sources. Impossible. The word echoed across Meridian command channels as their perfect formation began to break down. Their attempts to impose mathematical order on the chaos around the human ship only made things worse, creating feedback loops in their own systems. Santos watched as the Meridian fleet's perfect formation began to unravel. They're trying to solve this like a math problem, she observed. But sometimes the solution isn't finding the right equation. It's accepting that not everything can be calculated. The Pioneer moved through the Meridian formation like a ghost, the quantum probability field disrupting the aliens' coordinate systems so severely that they couldn't even maintain their positions relative to each other. Their attempts to compensate only created more chaos as their rigidly mathematical systems tried to account for variables that shouldn't have existed. This is beyond tactical defeat, Vex 427 realized, watching his fleet's perfect geometry dissolve into disorder. The humans aren't just defeating our weapons, they're challenging our entire understanding of warfare, of reality itself. As the Meridian ships began to retreat, their formation in shambles, Santos opened a channel to the alien flagship. "Admiral," she said, "I hope this demonstrates that there's more to the universe than perfect equations. Perhaps it's time we talked about finding a balance between order and chaos." The response came after a long pause, carrying a note of something the Meridians had never before expressed: uncertainty. And in that uncertainty lay the seeds of a profound change, not just in their approach to warfare, but in their understanding of existence itself. Evolution of understanding. The conference chamber aboard the UES Pioneer had been modified to accommodate both human and Meridian physiology. Captain Santos sat across from Admiral Vex 427, whose crystalline form now displayed patterns she was beginning to recognize as indicating deep contemplation. "Your species," the Admiral began, "achieves success through methods that should result in failure. We have spent the last 15 standard cycles analyzing the battle data, and our conclusions are disturbing." Santos smiled. "Because we don't follow the mathematical principles you consider fundamental to the universe." Precisely. Vex 427's form shifted, creating complex geometric patterns that the human translation matrix interpreted as a mixture of frustration and fascination. "Your quantum uncertainty drive alone violates 17 basic laws of physics, and yet it works. More than that, it works better than our mathematically perfect propulsion systems." The meeting was being broadcast throughout both fleets. In engineering sections across the Meridian ships, crystalline beings watched in growing amazement as Chief Engineer Martinez explained the principles, or rather, the deliberate lack of principles, behind human technology. "The key isn't fighting against quantum uncertainty," Martinez explained, standing before a holographic display of the Pioneer's engine core. "It's accepting it, working with it, We learned early on that trying to eliminate randomness from our equations just limited what we could achieve. In the Meridian flagship's computing center, logic officer Sen 891 was experiencing something unprecedented, genuine cognitive dissonance. The human approach to technology and warfare wasn't just different, it was fundamentally opposed to everything the Meridians had believed for millennia. But how do you predict outcomes? Sen 891 asked through the communication link. How do you maintain control without perfect mathematical models? We don't, Martins replied simply. We build systems that adapt to chaos rather than trying to eliminate it. Sometimes the most efficient solution is to embrace imperfection. The exchange was causing ripples throughout the Meridian fleet. Young officers, their crystalline forms still malleable, began experimenting with introducing controlled elements of randomness into their calculations. The results were startling. Systems that had been optimized for thousands of years suddenly showed potential for improvement. Meanwhile, in the conference chamber, the discussion had turned to deeper matters. Your approach to existence itself is alien to us, Vex 427 admitted. We have always sought to impose perfect order on the universe. The concept of intentionally incorporating chaos into our methods, it challenges the very foundation of our civilization. Maybe that's exactly what your civilization needs, Santos suggested. Look at Earth's history. Some of our greatest discoveries came from accidents, from things going wrong in interesting ways. Perfection can be a cage, Admiral. Sometimes you need to break the pattern to find something new. The Admiral's form pulsed with colors that the translation matrix couldn't quite interpret. We are beginning to understand this. Already, some of our younger members are experimenting with imperfect solutions. The results are both disturbing and intriguing. Across both fleets, something remarkable was happening. Human engineers and scientists were learning the elegant mathematical principles behind Meridian technology, while Meridian officers were cautiously experimenting with human-style innovative thinking. The exchange was transforming both sides. There's something beautiful about your mathematical precision, Santos acknowledged. We're not suggesting you abandon it, just that you consider adding a bit of chaos to your calculations. And perhaps, Vex 427 responded, we can help you find more elegant solutions to your creative approaches. The Admiral's form shifted into what Santos was beginning to recognize as their equivalent of thoughtful amusement. Though I must admit, watching your quantum uncertainty drive violate the laws of physics is oddly satisfying. The meeting continued for hours, but its effects would be felt for generations. The Meridians were learning that their pursuit of mathematical perfection had blinded them to whole categories of possible solutions. Humans, in turn, were discovering that their chaotic innovations could be refined and improved through Meridian mathematical principles. In engineering labs across both fleets, a new kind of technology was beginning to emerge, one that combined Meridian precision with human creativity. The results were beyond what either civilization could have achieved alone. As the conference drew to a close, Santos offered a final observation. You know, Admiral, maybe this is the true constant in the universe, not perfect mathematics, but the way different approaches can combine to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Vex 427's crystalline form displayed patterns that the translation matrix now confidently identified as agreement. Perhaps this is why our civilizations met, Captain. Not to prove one approach superior to the other, but to demonstrate that the universe is vast enough for many paths to truth. The meeting ended, but its impact was just beginning. Throughout both fleets, humans and Meridians were already working together, each learning from the other's strengths. They were about to discover that this combination of order and chaos, of precision and creativity, would become crucial sooner than anyone expected. The Symphony of Stars. The warning came 3 months after the historic meeting between humans and Meridians. Deep space sensors detected something massive approaching from intergalactic space, something that defied both human intuition and Meridian mathematics. Captain Santos stood on the Pioneer's bridge, now modified with crystalline interfaces that merged human and Meridian technology. Admiral Vex 427's holographic form hovered nearby, their patterns showing deep concern. "The void mass is unlike anything in our records," the Admiral reported. "It appears to be consuming both matter and the laws of physics themselves. Our equations cannot predict its behavior." Santos studied the sensor readings. The approaching entity seemed to bend reality around itself, creating a zone where neither human improvisation nor Meridian mathematics function properly. "Then we'll have to try something completely new. How's the integration of our combined fleet proceeding?" The answer came in the form of a spectacular display outside the viewscreen. The combined human Meridian defense fleet was a sight that would have been impossible just months ago. Sleek human vessels flew in formation with Meridian spheres, but both had been transformed by their collaboration. The Meridian ships now pulsed with seemingly random energy patterns, controlled chaos incorporated into their perfect geometries. Human vessels sported crystalline growths that followed precise mathematical patterns while somehow maintaining their unpredictable capabilities. Integration is at 89.7% efficiency, Vex 427 announced, then added with what Santos now recognized as humor. "With a planned margin of uncertainty, of course." In the months since their first encounter, both civilizations had undergone remarkable changes. Meridian scientists had learned to embrace controlled randomness in their calculations, leading to breakthroughs that their pure mathematics had never predicted. Human engineers, in turn, had discovered how to refine their chaotic innovations through mathematical precision. "The void mass will reach the outer defense perimeter in 6 hours, Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported. "Our new quantum crystal sensors are having trouble maintaining focus on it. It's as if it exists in a state of both perfect order and absolute chaos simultaneously." "Then we'll fight it with the same," Santos decided. "Admiral, I believe it's time to test the new hybrid defense system." Vex 427's form pulsed with agreement. Throughout the fleet, crews of both species moved with practiced coordination. The Meridian ships arranged themselves in a formation that was mathematically perfect yet incorporated elements of controlled randomness. Human vessels took positions that seemed chaotic but followed subtle mathematical patterns. "Initiating Crystal Chaos Protocol," Santos announced, and throughout the fleet, a new kind of technology came to life. The hybrid defense system was something neither civilization could have conceived of alone. It combined the Meridian's mathematical precision with humanity's embrace of uncertainty, creating a field that could adapt to any threat through both calculated responses and innovative solutions. As the void mass approached, it encountered something unprecedented, a defense that was simultaneously perfectly ordered and completely unpredictable. The human ship's quantum uncertainty drives resonated with Meridian crystal matrices, creating patterns that even the reality-bending entity couldn't simply consume or bypass. "The void mass is attempting to adjust its approach," Jackson reported. "It's as if it can't determine whether to treat our defense as a pattern to be broken or chaos to be ordered." "That's because it's both and neither," Santos replied. "Just like the partnership of our civilizations. The battle that followed would be studied by both species for generations to come. The void mass launched attacks that should have shattered any defense, but the combined fleet responded with strategies that merged mathematical precision with creative improvisation. Where pure order or pure chaos would have failed, their synthesis prevailed." Hours later, as the void mass retreated back toward intergalactic space, Santos and Vex 427 met again in the conference chamber. "A remarkable victory," the Admiral observed, their crystalline form displaying patterns of deep satisfaction. "Though I admit I cannot calculate the exact probability of how we achieved it." Santos smiled. "Maybe that's the greatest lesson we've learned from each other, Admiral. The universe isn't just about perfect mathematics or pure creativity. It's about finding the harmony between them." Indeed, Vex 427 agreed. "Our civilizations were not meant to prove one approach superior to the other, but to demonstrate that the greatest achievements come from embracing both. As they looked out at the combined fleet, where human and Meridian crews worked together with an efficiency that defied traditional metrics, both leaders understood that they had discovered something profound. In their differences, they had found a greater truth, that the universe's true poetry lay not in perfect order or pure chaos, but in the endless dance between them. The story of humanity's first contact with the Meridians would be told countless times across the galaxy. But its most important lesson was not about conflict or even victory. It was about the power of different perspectives coming together to create something greater than either could have imagined alone. For in the end, they had discovered that the most beautiful equations in the universe were the ones that left room for surprise, and the most powerful chaos was the kind that followed an underlying pattern. Together, they had written a new formula for the future, one that would guide both civilizations toward horizons they were only beginning to imagine.